Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So the topic of today's video is the misconceptions of American armor during the Second World War, particularly the Sherman tank. Now, for those of you who don't know, I actually quite like the Sherman tank. It's one of my favorite tanks, and somewhat saddening to hear all the misconceptions, lies, and myths surrounding the Sherman tank. And I just wanted to bust some of these myths, so I guess I'll dive right into it. Myth number one: Sherman are paper tanks. They had almost no armor and they were, extremely easy to penetrate. This, frankly, is completely false. The front plate of a Sherman was 2 inches. Now, you might think to yourself, 2 inches isn't that much at all. 75 millimeter could easily penetrate that. That's wrong. Accounting for the frontal slope of the Sherman, the armor increases to around 3.6 inches, which is quite good. In comparison, the frontal plate of a Tiger 1 was 4.3 inches, and looking at the two, there's only a 1.1 inch difference between the Tiger 1 and the Sherman. Uh, this idea that the Sherman tanks had paper armor comes from the fact that Germans had better guns, honestly. 3.6 inches of armor can bounce a 75 millimeter or a 50 millimeter shell, but when sluggers like the 80 millimeter or even, God forbid, the 128 millimeter enter the situation, that 3.6 inches of armor is just about as good as an ordinary shirt protecting against a bullet. Speaking of guns, this leads me to my next topic. Myth number two is that Sherman tanks carried pea shooters of guns that, merely just bounced off Sherman or my Tiger tanks. This fallacy comes from like video games and that awful movie Fury. I could make a video about that wreck of a movie another day, but anyway, the standard armament of an M4 Sherman was a low-velocity 75 millimeter gun. The low-velocity 75 millimeter gun was actually quite good. It was able to penetrate Panzer III and Panzer IV tanks, and I've heard of a few, extremely rare cases of the gun even piercing a Panther. Now, keep in mind this was probably extremely uncommon, very rare, isolated situations, but it did happen. The Sherman did have some troubles piercing like the Tiger 1 and Tiger 2 tanks, so the Easy 6 and Easy 8 variants of the Sherman were issued with like a high velocity 76 millimeter gun, which was actually, very good. The Panther even used a similar gun to the one mounted on Sherman variants. The 76 could easily penetrate a Panther or a Tiger or even a King Tiger. Hell, the only thing it couldn't get through was the Jagdtiger, which, let's be honest, not much to get to that absolute monster of a tank. Myth number three: Shermans were inferior in almost every aspect to the Tiger 1 and Panther. This is, completely false. The Shermans were slightly faster than the Tiger 1 and were more maneuverable, only really lacking in cross country. But, who cares? It's not like the Shermans were partaking in blitzkrieg tactics across open fields. The Sherman, while it did break down, it was cheaper and easier to repair. The Shermans were cheaper to produce, leaving the Allies with, tens of thousands, while Germans only managed to muster up around 2,000 Tigers. The Panther was also notorious for breaking down. It was over, like, I think 100 broke down before even seeing any combat during the Battle of Kursk. Myth number four is that Sherman tank crews were, suicidal for crewing them. Once again, false. The Sherman tanks by far had the best survivability out of any other tank in the war. The hatches were easier to access, and most of the time, a Sherman crew would be running back to friendly positions, whereas a Tiger 1 crew would just be emerging from their hatches at the exact same time. The Shermans were also given a notorious reputation for catching fire, which I can kind of understand. It has some truth to it, but it's still pretty much false. For example, if you were a tank commander, would you shoot a Sherman once, disabling it, or would you shoot it like 3 or 4 times, causing ammunition to burst into flames, making the tank irreparable? A lot of the time when crews were sent out to recover Shermans, they often reported them as burnt to a crisp due to this decision, because a burnt tank is really impossible to repair if it's like about as crispy as barbecue. Now, myth number five is that Tigers were everywhere all the time and constantly faced off against Shermans. This is, however, untrue. There were only ever 3 confirmed documented cases of a Sherman dueling a Tiger, and 2 out of the 3 situations the Sherman won, which, I find quite ironic. It's pretty funny, actually. But, what often happened was U.S. tankers would see a big, blocky Panzer IV and be like, oh, shit, that's a Tiger. they'd really just see the worst of the situation. U.S. tank crews feared Tiger tanks, and unlike us, they weren't amateur historians and couldn't distinguish between a late model Panzer IV and a Tiger One. It's not like they can stop and be like, okay, let's see, the Panzer IV has a bigger capula, and the Tiger One, like no, they couldn't stop and distinguish that. They're in the heat of battle. Yeah, that really does pretty much wrap it up for this video. So if you guys enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and a really quick announcement before I go. Face reveal at 300 subscribers. Hope you guys are excited for that. It's a little bit of ways, but hopefully you guys are excited, as I am. Anyway, as always, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you next time.